go to work, aren't you? Coffee on my deal and a Rick's trailer.
So,
This is a notice from the city on a zoning hearing they're having. The reason you got it is because it's out there by the EMS building there. So, I don't know. They're building a new home out there and evidently it's not zoned for that.
all right.
Yeah, they're already started on the house, so I don't
I
know
was
why
gonna
they're doing
say, aren't they well underway?
it. Yeah, they're well underway. So anyway, that's that.
So this is FYI.
Well, if you have an objection to it, I guess you can go and they can say, well, Tut, the house is already being built. I don't know.
Built somewhere else?
So, but anyway, we got the change on the annex, that's the carpet
Okay.
change.
We've got one tax roll
One tax
correction.
roll. I think that's all
Henderson, Texas.
I have. We got the schedule with the interviews,
Yes.
okay? Is that acceptable?
This is
Just
me.
the three? You wanna pick two more out of your pile, or since the one had gotten another job and the other guy didn't get back to me?
Well, I'm gonna see how these go today, and then we can decide if we don't think we got to drop.
I would
them.
agree with that.
And then we can
We don't
drop them
have any
some.
today.
We don't have any
They're
today?
not today?
No,
I thought it was, it was
May
right.
2nd.
May 2nd.
No one can make it.
The only one that, the guy that
Well, I see it,
wanted,
I
I
thought
swear I
that-
looked at
I
that.
put the date, I
the
thought,
guy wanted the telephone interview today, and then when I
no, that's what it was.
emailed
interview.
him back and said that wasn't acceptable, I didn't hear any more from him. So, since Clay's gonna be gone next week, we put him for the next week after.
Could you email Patty and tell her that? She called and
Tell her,
that we're not interviewing until May the 2nd. Just send her an email.
okay,
She, and I might as well bring this up now. There's a lot that Carolyn, not just Carolyn, but a lot of work that they're wanting done, and she's kind of dragging her feet on, not dragging her feet, she's just busy. But she would like to have the economic development director in place before she does a lot of this work that's being requested of her, and I think it's prudent.
yeah.
And she also made the point that there needs to be an endpoint for her services, at least. Not an end necessarily, but she can't do this indefinitely
Right.
for free, is what she's saying. And she wants, her goal is to get people here to be able to do it, you know, with the updates and whatever needs to be done once the internet, once it's all established. And she's still here, you know, her services are still available, and they still are. I mean, but she says at some point there needs to be an endpoint.
Yeah.
She needs to, she's trying to make a living, so, and a lot of what's
Can't we
going.
just pay her to keep doing it?
Yes, she's more than happy to keep doing it, and we can pay her. A lot of this stuff, she says, we can do ourselves, and she wants to, you know, people to be trained to do it. But then she says, and then you get to this next level where it requires a lot of her time and effort.
Well,
And
that's the
such
way
as
it
what's
is.
going on with economic development, and that she's like, you know, I will do it, but it's going to get put at the back of the burner, and I'm going to take care of my paying clients first, which she has to, because she has to eat. So I want to.
Well, even with the simple stuff though, it's a time factor for everybody else.
It is, and she will charge a minimum fee to do it, but you know, at some point there has to be.
Awesome job.
I don't know anything about it, but it does look good from what I've seen. It's really starting to come around. What do you think, Ron? Have you looked at it?
I've looked at it off and on. I think she's doing some real good stuff.
Good.
It's coming right along.
Good. Yeah, and it's a work in progress, and she, you know, she's always said that. This
Yeah.
isn't something you do overnight, so.
Well, and it's hard to, that initial part of a website is hard because you have to assemble so much information and you have to put it in the first time. And then finding the format that everybody likes and uses well is, but it seems like she's putting it together pretty well, so.
Good.
I don't know if you noticed when you came in, but we had a storm window break Friday. Where did we get these storm windows? Please tell me you did.
Down there at Heston, where the Amish.
Oh, Humphrey?
I
Is it
think so,
Humphrey?
Humphreys, I think.
The one on 50 highway?
I'm sure it's got bid on it.
I remember when they put them on, but I had no clue who did it. I can't find anything anymore. So maybe it's Humphrey.
I'm sure it is.
And the flagpole, Fuji changed flag this morning. He said the cable's about to,
He said he was gonna come in and talk about that.
oh,
Yeah.
we need a janitor to take care of it.
Yeah.
They won't.
But back to the web, I would think that once we have the economic development director, then that would be one of their responsibilities.
It's kind of what I always had envisioned.
Yeah, so. I think as soon as we have someone in place.
And if they
can
can't
take
do
over.
it, I don't, you know, Pat's more than happy to help. I mean, it's, you know, that's what she would like, yeah.
Okay, we got one tax roll correction, and I make a motion to approve this tax roll correction.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And this is the change order for the annex, carpeting, and then we also received credit of $7,000 because they were able to reuse the shower stall.
We have $7,000 credit back on that.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's just for our information.
So the carpet's gonna cost about half of what we,
Yeah. Well,
Just-
yeah. I know. Okay, that's all I have at the present time.
If I may, I'd like to remind the commissioners that Wetlands and Wildlife Byway is having a deal on the 29th. That we'd like to have you gentlemen there.
Is it at
to give
6:30?
I believe it's at 6:30.
That's what I have on their deals, I suppose.
Okay,
That's your spouses too.
I believe so. I don't see
6:30.
why not.
I
Yeah.
mean, is it for your spouse too?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's where we're gonna present the marketing
where's it at?
material to the
It'd be at
cities and
Education center, they're operating.
Shine bottoms.
One
Shine
Sign
bottoms.
bottoms?
Yeah.
Okay.
The new building.
Okay.
and I came in and took 225 of your visitors guys
You did
last
get 'em?
week.
Good.
Oh, you did?
Good man.
Okay. Because I have a box I was gonna take up.
Oh, I have 3 boxes in my truck I'm
Oh.
gonna take out there this afternoon, so
I'll just save mine.
please do.
Well, I have to ask him, she's seen this and wants to make sure that.
That she can go?
Yeah, she can go, but it's kind of interesting. You ever been there,
No, I haven't been inside there, I haven't.
Yeah, you need
It's
to
a
bring
good
her
place
with
to go
you.
and see it, just if the exhibits and everything too.
I'm gonna try and be there.
Okay, we'll recess.
Okay,
Done.
the flag, the cable of the flag is frayed. I mean, it's got that plastic coat and there's a cable inside it, which down to 2 little fine cables. And it's where it comes down clear at the bottom, and then I had to tie a rope on it because it's this much too short, or 2 feet too short. So when it pulled down, you know, and all the wind jerking it, everything, it sprayed it. So I went in and I found me a clamp, you know, a U-clamp, you know what I'm talking about? And I fold it like that and I clamp it off, but you're not gonna be able to run it back and forth. I mean, it's a temporary fix, but, and I don't know how you
Who
hook
would
on the
contact
cable.
anybody around for the legions, or anybody knows the flags, the South flags, and Clay, you know anything about?
Well, we get the rope from the lumberyard. I mean, it's a nylon rope, and
Well, I think if you put a nylon, I'm personal opinion, put a nylon rope on it,
Well, that's all it is.
keep an eye on it. You know, and then when it gets frayed, take it, make it long enough
That's it, it's just.
where
not
you
long
can,
enough.
you know, you don't have to crawl a ladder to get up on it, and it wouldn't have that pull on it. That's what's doing it. You know, a cable, you take
I
cable
see.
and bend it over halfway, you know it's not gonna last.
That pulley's probably not that big around the top anyhow,
No.
probably bends it around.
And he did change that pulley when he changed the flag last time, because it was getting bad, because you just see it, they're just barely hanging. So I think the pulley's all right, but I'm not for sure how you're gonna hook the rope on to the cable. Maybe we could tape it.
Duct tape.
Well, I know, but I don't know if it'll,
Tape it so
it'll
it'll go
go
around
through.
through there, you mean?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll,
Clear through that pulley up there.
yeah. There's a chance.
Chinese handcuffs.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Um,
But I mean, maybe that would work, but we need to do it, you know.
So who
Before
put
we
the
have to have
cable
somebody out
up?
in the truck and put that up there.
Well, yeah.
What?
Who did that? Who put the cable up?
A guy from Hutch. Is it,
Kenny's Electric or something?
Yeah, 'cause they have
I've
a
got
big boom.
the number in there. He's got the tallest
So
boom.
we don't need to move, we can salvage it down, we can go ahead.
If we could, yeah, we could tie it on.
and then, you know, like the next time you paint it, which would be the next time your cable or your pulley, and you can't, I mean, there's no way to go check that. But he just changed that cable,
Yeah, it's only been a couple of years.
yeah. And they painted the pole, and then, well, of course, the cable beating against the pole is pretty much. But I think a lot of that, where it looks like it needs painted, it's just the plastic, you know, kind of rubbing against it. But I don't know where to get rope.
So we need to call Larry, see if he has rope.
You have me to call Leonard?
Won't really
How
see.
tall is that?
He doesn't have rope over it.
Go get it,
He
he get
can
it.
order it.
We
I-
can check, we check first if you got it.
I don't know how tall it would be.
Nylon rope.
I don't either.
How tall it is, I have no idea. Is it as tall as the courthouse?
It's tall.
Well, you know how tall the courthouse is, right?
But we want to get it, I mean, I would get it, if we think it's 50 foot.
We get a
Let's get
decent,
100.
yeah, get a decent amount.
You know, I mean,
We always cut it.
Yeah.
Exactly, we
Rope's
don't,
not
let's
that
don't
expensive.
short us like we did last time. I think that's a problem.
What kind of rope do you have on the flagpole out at the EMS building? Is it just nylon?
I think so.
Okay, I'll call over Speedy, to the lumberyard over here,
And then call,
Leonard.
Whatever,
Okay.
just it, you got it.
Is that all right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Steve, are you ready? Are you?
I'm ready. I think TJ's coming along.
I thought
Behind me?
I thought you were bringing in the AED.
Nah.
No, this is the color.
I just have a couple things. This, we have two bids on blocking up the two overhead door openings out at the EMS building. One from Martin Pfister. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Masonry out of Radium for $26.65. And another one from Sally Masonry for $29.50. My recommendation would be to, I think the gentleman with the low bid there did the work as a subcontractor over here next door, and so it looked to be pretty good work, so I'd say with that being said, the lower bid would mean logical sense to accept.
Well, they use the same type of material, that's that.
I believe so. I don't know if
The
they,
wood block and it says,
I'll make sure that that is correct. They, Originally, we wasn't sure on like on the inside, how we were gonna do the inside. And so he actually gave us, Mr. Sully gave us a bid to block up the inside too. And also to block up a couple windows.
This one's just for the outside, the other's for the inside there, okay?
That's correct, yes. And this would just be the outside, so
That's
comparing those two.
I would make sure you get the same quality material.
That's her sleeve, right?
Yes.
Both locals.
Yes. I don't know that there's another block person, not that I know of, or I would have gotten 3, but I don't know of any others. In the county.
I still haven't figured out who Fitz is from radio. You don't know either?
Mm-mm.
People are ready to
212 Radio
I
Road.
don't.
I don't either here anymore.
I'm surprised.
Okay, so,
We need a motion, right? I move that we accepted the bid from Martin Pitzer Masonry for the construction of door openings, locks.
If the materials are comparable. Right. I'll second it.
We've been assured that they are. If they're not, then Steve can deal with that.
As long as it's concrete block, I mean, I don't know that there is
Okay,
a difference.
sometimes there is.
We'll make sure,
Maybe that's the answer.
we'll make sure.
He doesn't specify that.
No, well, I'll make sure that it's comparable.
Did you second?
okay, it's been moved and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And this is backyard. Positive. Probably with uncontrolled burns.
Move that back.
Like,
I had a phone call from, obtained this from a landowner and pretty extensive one. And he was in favor of these penalties and such. He thinks a lot of time, he said, why, jeopardize your neighbor's property when you're out there burning and stuff. You don't have adequate controls and everything too. And like he said, a lot of his, they go ahead and mow just so to protect your neighbors and stuff like that. So he was in favor, I think that's one, last year's support, instead of hearing the negative thing, that he was, wanted to assure me that he was in favor of the penalties and having, make people more responsible for what they're doing and not injuring their neighbors and stuff like that.
well, kind of bring you up to date, we had another one yesterday that was, it involved 2 stations, pretty much the full stations, and around 4 hours, a little over, probably around 4 hours. And this was an out-of-town burn company, and they were given, and it kind of gives you an idea of how this might work, because dispatcher called me in the morning, and we were predicting winds to come up, and I said, any fire that requests that you have in this morning, if they can get it done within an hour, then it's okay. Well, that was 9:30 in the morning that this person called, and at 1:45 was when we got called out that it was completely out of control. So I was on a medical call to Wichita, but I was still able to go and come back, and they were still out there. So I went ahead and went out and visited with the gentleman and explained to him that that we weren't happy that he had been given permission. We had it on tape at 9:30 in the morning, and here it is around 4 o'clock now. And we're finally concluding this burn that you had to call out 8 fire trucks to, and really not adequate protection around the perimeter. So I explained to him that it wasn't completely my decision, but most likely he would get a bill. His only question was how much. So as you kind of read through what I put down in writing is that I want to get some things on tape. And I think if the dispatcher can just go through these, I don't want to, to tie them up on the phone for a long time, but I want the property owner, the burner, whoever, the burning party, to acknowledge that they do have some of these things in place. And if they don't, then of course I'll have the dispatcher would be directed to tell them that they must before they proceed. And then when we go back out, I want to look at those factors determining negligence. I kind of look at this as like the police department bringing something to the DA, and you guys being the DA. I want to bring something to you that should be processed on. If we don't have good, solid reasoning behind that, if it's a little iffy, then I think we probably ought to maybe, I won't make the recommendation. But if we really feel like it's pretty solid, then we'll present it to you and with all the, with any tapes, with any pictures, with any diagrams, so you have a good little packet that we can put together in a folder. And if you do have somebody come down to visit with you that has reason to disagree with that decision, then you'll have a pretty good solid, well, we will have a pretty good solid stand to come back with. What I've really put together there is a pretty minimal cost. I mean, that $50 per hour per truck is,
I think, with all the
that's
damages
probably
you-
minimal. I mean, that's the minimum that it cost us. We had a generator or an alternator problem with the truck yesterday after being out for 4 hours, and so we'll have to get that fixed. But when you take these, they're not operating out on the asphalt. They're operating out on the, on the rugged ground, and you're gonna have, tires that are punctured. You're gonna have with broke mirrors, with, the way I look at it is you have two different, with the fire department, you have two different categories: the cost of readiness, which all taxpayers should support that across the board. But I think the cost of the actual response, now if it's, if it's lightning or something like that, but I think you take on a greater responsibility when you purposely light something on fire. That I don't think the other taxpayers should incur that expense that you cause when you don't do that in a safe manner. That's just my personal opinion. Does that look like a reasonable approach? Is there anything, good advice to me that we could do?
Well, these are lists of questions you're gonna be asked with him.
Yes.
The dispatcher.
That's what I'd like the dispatcher to ask, those bulleted questions.
They have days that have water.
When you give the water requirement, not all these burns are grass fires, maybe.
Correct.
So you don't necessarily need mobile water or something like that, burning a brush pile.
That's true, yes. Yes, it'd be just if it was a field that they're burning.
Yeah, basically this looks like you're talking about guidelines for a field, which is fine.
Yes.
And the other thing I'd like you to consider is everybody goofs up once in a while, just whatever. But if this is something that somebody repeats, then I think,
Right?
and I don't necessarily think we need that hardly defined, and I understand you coming to us before you do anything, so that kind of helps soften that, but
Sure.
It needs to be known that,
I think when
if you do this
clearly-
more than once.
You
But I
can
think
assess
when
these
they're
on
clearly,
one
I think when they're clearly negligent,
Right.
regardless if it's first time or second time,
Yeah,
I think,
agree with
if they just don't take any precaution, no mow line, no disc line,
Just throw a match.
and yet they said they would. And, we asked them, and we told them, you must do this. And to me, even if it's the first time, I think they should get a bill for that.
Okay.
We're certainly not gonna be to the extent of, that the mow line wasn't quite wide enough or something like that, you know, I mean, unless it's so dinky that it's just, you know, it really wasn't even, couldn't call it even a line. But we're certainly not gonna be out there with a tape measure and saying, well, that was 6 inches short of what we required.
Yeah, it needs to be a sincere effort.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
and that varies with.
And even respect for the neighbor. I mean,
Absolutely.
Well,
and I would think that if it was a second time offender, then these prices should go up.
Well, that's where we probably ought to incorporate a fine. More so than, I think this is the cost. What we're doing is we're trying to delineate, this is the cost. And we're not trying to make any money or fine you above and beyond what, all we're asking for you is just to cover the cost when you made the call. Somebody pays that bill, and everybody pays that bill if we don't pass it on to the person that was negligent in causing that. So I'm looking at okay, here's just the cost of the response. Now, I think when you have somebody that's doing it repeatedly and just pretty much doesn't care, they just, I don't care, I'll pay that bill. Then I think you have to look at a fine on top of the, and that's probably for your repeat people if they come back. If the gentleman that came from out of county to Vernon here would come back and do the same thing again, then I think there's the bill for the response. Now here's the fine, and that's going to go up if you continue.
that needs to be established and made clear too.
Yes.
Otherwise, the fine doesn't do any good, you know. It's supposed to be there as a deterrent,
Yes,
and if it's not somehow let known, it doesn't act as a deterrent
correct. If it's not high enough and
and not publicized
right.
or communicated. So,
With that said, is there any other questions that you have?
I think you're on the right track. Just
Gotta get that.
I do too. The people I've talked to, they all agree that, you know, if it's something that's negligent, that the county taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for it, or at least not 100%.
Our firefighters, too, are volunteer firefighters.
Right, and you gotta respect their time and their efforts.
Working their tails off out there.
That's 3 consecutive Sundays, you know, 7 hours, 8 hours, and 4 hours on 3 consecutive Sundays that we've had the majority of the department out. You can't tap them. I think we've had approximately over 30-some calls in 30 days.
And they got jobs too, in fact.
Correct. And some of these folks, their employers let them off, or they're self-employed, and they're not making money, or their employer's not making money
Right.
when they're not there. And they'll put a stop to that at some point if it becomes too big of a burden. With that said, I guess I'll just start off with the gentleman that we just had yesterday. And I should have his name, Rocky Fahey. What's the last name?
Fahey.
Fahey. And I'm not sure, I've got all the contact information. Pretty much no perimeter and no proper perimeter protection. Burned it way outside the boundaries of the time that we authorized him to burn out of. And for those two reasons, I think we should send a bill.
Yeah, I agree.
The next one.
He was told he had that R window.
What was he burning, grass?
CRP.
CRP.
The company.
Yeah, he's like a wildlife biologist, does pasture and game management.
He does this for a living?
He's got a little business card.
Yeah. Both or one of these?
Not for sure.
Okay. The next one would be Doyle Wilson. We actually responded 2 times to this call. The first time was around 3 hours that we were there. The next time was an additional 3 hours. The first one, I think there was enough variables involved that initially we was going to we tallied up a bill for both, but I think that there was enough variables in the first one that we'll overlook the first one, and that would be my recommendation. But the second one, I think, where we'd already been out there for a total of 3 hours, there was timber piles that were in close proximity to huge shelter belt, and just really didn't do a lot with those. It was gonna be a lot of work, no doubt, but we actually went back on that one 2 days later, and we're there for another 3 hours fighting that fire. My recommendation would be that we send a bill for the second call. That's not the right price there, though. Is that right? Or it is?
That was before we changed the rate.
Yeah, so that would,
refigure that.
Well, let me
so
understand.
it'd be 6 trucks that were out on that. Oh, yes.
He lit 2 different fires?
No, his fire continued on, stoked up from the winds from the first fire.
So he lit a fire, you were called out,
Yes,
you put it down.
we put it down after about 3 hours.
A couple days later, the wind came up, it started back up,
It started back up again.
and then you had to go back out.
We had to go back out. I think the first, I mean, from the, I think just not taking care of some of the tree piles and such that were in close proximity to the shelter belt caused the second fire. And I think a little bit more work on the brush piles would have prevented that.
But you didn't get the fire put out the first time?
Well, we had brush piles that still, I mean, you're not gonna extinguish some of the, the timber
Mhm.
that's burned, that caught fire. The responsibility of the landowner is to do something with that, cover it up.
Let's see.
He had a big
That's-
payloader out there when we left.
And he could have done
Yeah.
something, and he did not. Because I can see him saying, well, the fire department didn't put out the fire, why is that my fault?
Right.
Understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
It basically is a continuation of the same fire.
But as a snapshot of, of the expense to the county, what this cost, we had 9 trucks the first time. 9 trucks for 3 hours. We broke mirrors. It is brutal terrain out there in that area. And, we, after you put trucks out for that long in those conditions, you're gonna have to replace air filters. Like I said, we had broken mirror. We incurred a substantial expense on that fire. And then we came back and did it all again for 3 hours, 2 days later.
If he was aware at first, he should have did something with the brush piles. He watched them and control the water and everything.
Basically what he did while we were there was just kind of stir them around. And that was it. Loader left at the same time we did. So,
And it was the wind that picked up
Well,
a
yeah,
day or
it's-
2 later
that was on
brought it
Friday when the first call came in. We were back out there on that Sunday when we had like 40, 50 mile an hour
back.
winds.
Friday was the nice day, everybody was burning, right? And then
And Saturday was
2
nice
days,
too.
2 days later, the wind whips up,
Yeah.
and you have a fire again, even though you've already burned all around it. Man.
The big-
And I'm sure he was thinking, let the rust piles burn, right? I mean, that's what he's.
Right, but they were sitting in such close proximity to the shelter belt that it didn't take much to blow a spark right over to the shelter belt. If these were clean out in the middle of the field, I wouldn't be presenting it to you at all, but these were in pretty close proximity to the shelter belt. Some of them were 20-some feet.
Did anybody say anything to him? Did you say, hey, you better do,
Yeah, that
I
was
mean,
the
it's not
understanding when we left, was that he needed to take care of the brush piles.
So,
And like I said, that's why we requested him bring his loader out there and do something with them,
and he did not do that.
stir them around basically.
So they burn better,
Yeah, pretty much.
which is okay, but.
As long as the wind doesn't come up and blow sparks into your shelter belt. It's not necessarily, what I'm looking at is not necessarily a punishment, that would be a fine. I'm just looking at, when you could have done just a little bit more and you didn't, and the fire department spends a large amount. You know, this comes nowhere close to covering the expense of what the county incurred over the 6 hours that we had between 9 and 6 trucks out on that property. So I guess I'd be asking, I don't know what this Kylie not the right amount, but that we would send a bill to Doyle Wilson for the second response to the same fire, which was 6 trucks.
So you're not,
It'd be like $900. Is that correct?
I think so, $50 for truck, 2 additional
300, yeah, $900.
that's when you had figured up $6,000 the other day.
Yeah.
That was-
And that was, you know, we'd set that down in it originally, and it just didn't, it seemed to be that was not really, that was too much. That was our original design of what we, I don't know where we got that, the numbers at. But, you know, once we looked at it, it didn't cost us that much to. I think $900, like for 6 trucks to be out for 3 hours, looking at it, fuel expense, damages, you'd certainly have to run a period of time to put an exact number on that, but I think that this is probably on the minimal side of what it actually costs for 6 trucks to be out for 3 hours.
You had 6 trucks.
And they called you out, right?
Yes.
I guess if we're gonna do this, we gotta do it.
Send the bill.
Okay.
I'd like for you to ask Misty, or are you doing the billing on these, TJ?
This deal through QuickBooks.
Through QuickBooks? Okay, we have, you know, everything right now is in the EMS. She's gonna need to set up a different company
Okay.
for fire, because I don't think we wanna start commingling. Occasionally, when you had just one billing or something like the city of Kiowa and stuff, you know, she always ran it through your EMS, but
Okay.
we probably really need to start segregating that. So that'll require setting up a new company in QuickBooks under just fire.
Can we run it through any
I
other
think we're all
agencies
on
or
it.
through the county in any other way?
It
seems-
I don't
seems
care if it
kinda
really comes
severe,
back into my
but
account or not, I mean,
How many trucks?
it'd be nice if
Well-
it did, but,
Probably in reality is probably twice that amount.
Well,
But I guess I don't
I don't
understand
think,
what you're
yeah, I
asking.
think.
well, I mean,
I think
can
it
it go
does
through,
cost us
go
that
out
amount of
through
money,
any
not
other
more, I agree.
manner, so we wouldn't have set
The
on new?
bookkeeping manner.
Because when I
I don't
first,
have any
like I
accounts
said, when I
receivable
first moved
on our
here, first
phone.
thing I was told, you're
Well,
gonna burn.
there's
You gotta
one
get a permit,
available
it's
that I
$150
need.
fine. if you
I'd
don't.
have to call CIC and.
Okay.
And this is
That
not a
would-
fine, this is just
Okay.
recovering costs.
Yes,
And then my second question is, will statements be sent out on that every month? And if it's not paid, what kind of enforcement is there going to be? Because we better think
sure.
this all the way through.
I think you'd have to turn it over to the, your attorney, wouldn't you? I mean, at some point.
I'm just asking questions, because if they're gonna be uncollectible and accounts receivable hanging out there, we better be willing to take enforcement on it, or we're gonna be in the same situation of just having accounts receivable.
Right. I would say that any fine that would be imposed, like for a city for violations of, you know, like mowing or something of that sort, you know, where, you know, like a city incurs a bill to, you know, to clean up a yard that isn't mowed properly, after they, you know, they hire somebody to do it, or they do it through their own workers, where they send a bill. However that's done is,
They put it on their taxes.
Well,
That's
I'd say
so
it's-
natural, but I don't know that you can put, there's only certain things you can stick on as a special tax,
Do you
and
think
I
this
don't
is
know,
Huh?
You think this is okay?
we'd have to see. But like, if you do it to this guy, you're sticking it on the landowner's
Right.
yes.
property.
And I told Rocky,
It just seems like.
when I went out to the scene, I
It
said
seems
that
like an awful.
Is that,
this is gonna go to the property owner.
oh, it's not going to this guy?
No, I think we have to send it to the
Contract.
property owner. chase it down every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's
You know,
burning.
the property owners.
I don't think it's the right way to do it. I think you go to the property owner. It's their responsibility when they, that person is doing work for them. And I think ultimately it's the
That's
property
an
owner.
interesting idea. So he hires somebody, that guy screws up and you're gonna, and the
Or send it
And
back to the
and probably
property
the
owner.
landowner will turn it in on their farm owner's insurance, won't they?
well,
And
This
then that,
this guy here is gonna pay the bill.
and then that
But-
insurance company will go after the person they hired with their
Yes.
insurance company. That's
Right.
probably
that
right,
is not
what
our
will
job to
happen,
go
won't you
to
think?
do that for
I'm
us.
thinking turn in, the insurance company's gonna be one to go after the
The other
company. will
insurance company.
Cover your liability, then they're gonna go after the person.
Yeah, I mean, that's
In fact,
just kind of what I
whoever
have in my mind,
Then they're gonna give their money right back, so they don't have to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Never thought of that, but that makes sense. Okay, well, I'll go along with it. I agree,
So
we gotta
we'll
throw a
set
line
something
in the
up.
sand.
Another-
Well, yeah, I just want to be able to think it through and say, okay.
Right,
Because if we have people that are hesitant and following the rules anyway, they're gonna say, no.
Because I know when we first made up the resolution, I was looking at a lot of other counties and what they required. And a couple of the counties would actually, they would put a lien against the property until the fine or whatever was paid. And I don't
Well,
know how much that entails, but
That's a good point. Have you checked with other counties what their policies are, what they do? I didn't know you.
that's what we've got, that's what I gathered whenever we put the actual
That's your
resolution
guidelines,
together. Yeah, because we kind of
As
mirrored.
far as the fines or the prices, you come up with that yourselves, or
Yeah.
not the fines, but the prices?
The fines that, a couple of the counties that we looked at, the fines were, I mean, minimum $1,000. So that's why we kind didn't
Local
want-
area counties, or, I
of,
mean?
yeah, well, I kind of just went around the state of Kansas that I could find on the websites. So, but some of them are pretty strict.
And they should be.
Yeah.
well, and I think on both ends there, I mean, you have to take into, it's complicated, it really is. Because you know, for somebody that just, like you said, makes a mistake one time, they shortcut, they knew they shortcutted, but we're still gonna send them a bill for the expenses. And I think of course, maybe I'm just merry thinking, but I would think the person that caused an expense to other taxpayers would not be too against paying for what he cost. Where we're not trying to collect a fine on you, we're not trying to,
Right, yeah, there's a
you know,
distinction. I guess that what
We're just trying to cover the
concerns me isn't necessarily burning CRP or pastures or stuff like that, so much as it is maintenance fires around homesteads and stuff that can get out of control pretty easily.
Sure.
And you know, you do what you think is the right thing. If the wind comes up or something happens, and, it's like I was telling you earlier, we not only have, we have a right, we've got an obligation to maintain our property, and that's one of the few things we have available to do that. In the country, we don't have the ability to haul landfills and stuff like that.
Well, and that's the thing too. I
The
mean,
city isn't coming around picking up our limbs after we storm, things like
Right.
that. We got to be able to burn.
As far as the responsibilities, like, you know, like we've listed here, I mean, if you make an effort to meet each one of those, I mean, you did your part. So,
Yeah, I understand.
it's more like an accident then.
Yeah.
You know, and you wouldn't charge for an accident, the fire department would.
As long as we understand the difference and
Right.
there's a distinction made, I can support this.
It's probably more significant negligence instead of just purely negligence.
So, what about the adjacent property owner who has his field burned or whatever and didn't want it burned? Do they have any recourse of who instigated the fire?
I'm sure that they do. I know
They
that,
probably would.
I would think you go back to the individual calls and let their insurance company again handle it.
depending upon the harm that was done, I know that the fire that we lost the truck in, you know, that field burned off at, you know, in the fall. And I was told that, that it was gonna be pretty expensive for the responsible party on that field, because they were probably gonna have to bring in topsoil because of, erosion from the winds over the winter.
Spread some manure or something.
Yep. So, they certainly incurred
Well, I
expense
know
from
one
adjoining
property
property
owner
owners.
lost several, not miles, but a significant line of fence
Yes,
that had to be replaced.
That's expensive.
I'm told it's about $9,000 a mile,
Quarter mile.
quarter mile,
Quarter mile.
$9,000 per quarter mile.
No.
So
Isn't that what he
I thought it was
said?
a mile.
Maybe it is a mile, maybe it is a mile.
I was thinking of $9,000 per mile.
Per mile, I'd go.
I'd go with that.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah,
put
if
up
it
the
was-
fence, so that's
If
why I
it's a
know.
quarter mile, it would be,
No, I.
It's
I-
expensive.
Like that.
Yeah.
Hey, does he dig postal?
That one's
I
number
did
two.
do that.
Number three would be Roger Russell. This was not the party doing the burning, kind of like Rocky. This was contract burning. This one, mostly we were called out to control the roadway because it was along 281. And I think, again, not trying to collect a fine or anything, this one was probably, if it was a landowner, I'd probably say maybe not even a bill, but I think when people are contracted to burn, you're gonna have to hold them to just a wee bit higher standard.
I agree.
They're the experts. And certainly I'm not even placing blame because wind changed directions completely. But when you're burning alongside 281, you better be prepared for that. Because the fact that we came out and practically shut down 281, I don't even know if we had the right as fire department to do that, but you couldn't see 30 feet on 281. We could have had, a head-on collision,
It's happened so many
and
times.
it would not have been good. So, we had to come out and actually do traffic control. We had 4 trucks
Actually, that should just be an hour.
for 1 hour. So that's $200. So it's not much, but I still think that staying consistent is important too.
And then go back to the person that contracted from too.
Yes. And I'm not sure, especially if we have connections, I don't know if we should allow, what's your thoughts on that? If we have somebody like Rocky and this person, they just want to take care of it, so a bill doesn't go to the property owner, I wouldn't think that we'd be against that, would we?
Money, I don't think so.
But it needs to be paid immediately.
I think
They're the ones we really want to send the message to.
I think probably
Yes.
owner should.
That-
owner
that's
should
what
be-
concerns
should be
me about your
notified
method
of what's
here.
going on and let's let them know what happened, so they.
Just let them know that it was
Right.
covered. Yeah, they should know what happened on their property,
I think so.
but if somebody just wants to go ahead and take care of it, and they say, hey, give it to me, I don't, I want to be responsible.
That's fine, yeah. They're probably the one responsible anyhow, it's gonna be paid.
Okay. The last one, John Drew, which would be up by Radium. And this one was, really the thing here is we were called so quickly that it just didn't appear that, it appeared that that was the plan. That, we're gonna burn off a bunch of big hay bales and then we're dispatching. So, really not enough safeguard negligent. If you're gonna burn off a bunch of big hay bales, you need to have it to where it should be safe. And if you have to call for the fire department within minutes after you actually set the hay bales on fire, you certainly didn't take due precaution before you lit those big hay bales.
He did call in.
Did call in for the burn, and then, but immediately, within minutes, requested the fire department respond. So, and even with that one there, we ended up staying on what we burned off.
We burn off about 100 acres of this grass the next day. because we got called back up for that shelter valve and those they failed again.
So again, we incurred, I'm not even tallying up that, but for that initial response is what we were looking at,
I
wasn't
think
it?
there was like 4 trucks for about an hour or so.
So again, not a big, not a large bill that we're sending, but at least something to say that, you know, we have a standby policy too. So they can request that. In this particular situation, I would have preferred that they did that.
Yeah, it's just so much an hour to come out there and just stand by, was it,
Yes.
$50 an hour or something out there?
And I wish they would do that, especially in these circumstances, because
Could've been
then
controlled,
then
right?
we can have 1 truck instead of 4 trucks. And if there's something else that needs to be done, then we can make sure that that's done before the match is struck. But if we don't, if they don't ever incur a bill at all for the response, then there's really no need to even spend just a little bit of money on a standby. They can just call it in and then call us. So there has to be some way that we say, that's not the procedure we want. We want to be there before so we don't have to send 4 trucks. The expense is greater to the fire department and the impact to the firefighters is greater. Whereas we could have 2 people out there that actually wanted to be out there
And could assess it before the
instead of
day
8
is struck.
people. Yes.
Could that be another question that the dispatchers ask too? Would you like a standby before you know? Because I wonder if some of us, the education to people, I mean, I know it's available just because I've been in touch, but.
I think we could pass that information on.
um,
Most of the time, they're wanting to burn right now, and with the volunteer staff, we really can't.
No, but I do think
We'll
that
take
could
a
be
good amount.
more publicized. There's
I
a
think
lot of
it's
people,
just
Yeah.
be
So
honest,
it's
it's
hard,
out there.
the word's getting out.
But that's a good
We've
point.
had some-
and you have a price
I think with that-
established for that
I think with that
50
contact, we
It's-
could
It's
at least,
$100 for 2
at least for
hours
future
for
ones,
one
we'd
truck and 2
we'd be able
people.
to plant that seed.
Minimum 2 hours.
Oh, it's a
And then
2-hour
fif-
minimum.
Yeah, and then $50 an hour after that.
Because that's a small price to pay, really.
Yeah, right, protect your neighbor and everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just something to do, their liability.
$100, it seems cheap, but on a small
Absolutely.
fire or brush pile, that's more than somebody's gonna be willing to do, so I don't
Well,
know.
yeah,
It'd be nice if maybe you could have us
we can maybe break it down.
break it down.
We just have so
Depending on
much
the
more
type of
grass
fire.
in this area now than what we
But,
used to.
But the smaller ones probably aren't as likely to get away and.
Right.
No, but still, it'd be
It's
nice
an option that we
Right.
throw
if
out
it was
there.
available and people would use it, like you said, for all, those are good reasons to have a standby.
And that's all happened.
And I'd hate for someone to lose their house, so.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what kind of fine you have. With insurance, you lose your house or other property, well, it's,
Outbuilding or something, it's more expensive.
Okay,
More than $100.
thank you.
All right.
Steve, just a second.
Sure.
2 things I want to talk about. First of all, I was in Hudson the other day and asking people, and they say good things about you.
Oh, yeah?
Honestly,
good.
honestly, the people appreciate the efforts that you're making, and by and large, I've been in Maxville too. I asked them, what their opinions were. Speak pretty highly. So I want
Well,
to
thank you.
But I have had a couple of issues that concern me raised, and I'm not trying to micromanage or anything, but it's been brought up that twice trucks have gone out without water in them, 2 have fire, and I don't have any idea how true this is. I promised the person that I would bring this subject up
Sure.
and see what's going
The
on.
only time, well, it'd be the pumper truck, because we had, the seals were out of it, it was leaking water. So, but we had the tanker truck coming with it, so
So you take it out empty and then use it.
we had another
Which
truck.
makes sense.
The tanker truck was right there with us, so.
But those
but
take
we've
water
got,
so they get
we've
the
pretty
water
much
in
got
it.
that fixed now, so
Right.
it's, we've got that problem taken care
So
of.
good.
The only reason we didn't have water is because otherwise we'd have a lake in the middle of the station.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
but we've got that fixed, and we've actually got a few more minor repairs that we're gonna do with that, so, but, yeah, that was the only instance that did happen, was on that one call, so.
And I might add, for Hudson is Tom Fisher.
Yeah, they're thrilled.
And, oh my gosh. And he's, the good thing, we have two of our we have our undersheriff and we have our, we have Tom, two of our law enforcement officers. And, from the small amount of time that I've been with Stafford County, you don't understand the complexity of an operation in a small community like this until you've worked in it. And that's really what makes it work, is when you utilize some of the staff that you have. Doug Brown, Stafford County, the city, a lot of their workers are firefighters, are EMTs, and if we didn't have them, we'd really be hurting significantly during the day. During the day in St. John, we're hurting pretty bad right now because most of our workers have jobs out of town during the day, during the week. We need to do heavy recruiting with city employees and visit with city council to see if they would be accommodating to allow us to use their people periodically. Again, we got to be cognizant that we can't do it too much. And I'm very careful over in Stafford, both the chief and his patrol officer, they cover an ambulance for us, but I never send them out of town. If they have a call and we transport over to Stafford, then I'll make sure and get a unit over there so we don't take them out of their, send their law enforcement officers out of county for a while.
And the city allows this, right?
City allows it. But the same thing goes with the deputies, and I'm very appreciative that the sheriff allows, us to use them. Tom's available, he's probably worked harder as, in the fire department at one single person than any other in the last 30 days, by far. For some reason, they just have really been hammered from that station.
Well, in Maxville, some of the city employees
The
work
city
over to.
requires it at
So
Maxville.
the city allows them and requires them to them.
So we get a pretty good response during the day from those two stations, and Tom coming on as the chief, he's at least able to give us, not only some response, but also we have administrative, a chief officer there too. Which, that's kind of my policy when we send somebody. We sent resources to Reno County when they had their big fire. And I prefer that we have one of the chief officers go along, because not always can, and that's the case over there, we can't communicate. They have 800 radios. And we'll have one of those pretty quick, actually a portable one that we got to this day. But all of our trucks, we're not going to put those things in all of our trucks. They're extremely expensive. So we'll communicate with our trucks, and then one of our people can communicate with them. And that way we keep our people safe, and we know what our people are doing, and we just don't turn them over to them.
Did you get the repeater fixed?
It's not yet.
No,
Is that
they
right?
had to send it in to the company and get the part replaced.
Oh, yes. Need to get authority to, and I spoke with Clayton just so since it's such a mission critical item, but that was around $1,500. Around $1,500. The repeater's down, the card in it. Apparently the lightning or something got it, and so need to just ask for authority to go ahead and pay that bill.
I'd have to have that.
Absolutely.
That's the one at Hudson?
Seward.
Sewer. So we need to have a motion
We
to
do need
pay
a
the bill,
motion.
I think, don't we? So we're.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second, all in favor say aye. Aye, okay, so we get, so it'll be back,
Hopefully soon. They didn't give me a time frame, but I told them to put a
so
rush
you're
on it.
totally down at Seward?
We still got a voter at Radium, so we can kind of cover that area, but it's pretty sketchy depending on where you're at.
It's our radio system, we really, it's iffy in a lot of spots. I don't know if any of you have a scanner, but if you listen to even our dispatch center, oftentimes it comes clear through my portable, but they don't hear it. And so we just, I'm no radio person, so I don't know what but we probably should have somebody come in and just look at the whole system
Weren't you required for long to go to narrowband?
Yeah.
Will that help? Will we have better radios?
I don't think that's really gonna help.
They're just gonna, they're actually gonna put you on different frequencies, so you won't be bogging up somebody else.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I mean, I've been messing with the radio system and stuff and radios since I've been here, and I honestly don't know what the answer is. I've asked questions to a lot of different people, and it's just, there's certain areas in this county that, I mean,
Just like a cell phone.
even on a truck radio, you may be,
That's
let
right.
you go.
Cell phones don't do you any good either.
No.
Yeah,
that
we-
around the refuge, and I got 2 cell phones, and I can't get either one of them to work.
When we transport to Pratt with our medic service, if we want to call my cell phone, you better do it before you get to a certain point, or you're gonna have to wait. And then, you know, then we get complaints from them that, well, you didn't call in time to tell us that you were coming, and say, well, we went through the black hole, you know? We were in the no reception area.
Well, now, all the publicity that Butler County got last week, they had Highway Patrol talking to every unit in the state and with their $8 million radio up
They're
there.
800.
Yeah, those 800 radios, you can talk from border to border.
So a portable radio, one of these, 800 radio, $3,500 per radio. So it's
It'll be all sleep in the ear anyhow,
Yeah.
too.
And they're nice, but
extremely expensive.
Don't leave me out, I want to follow up, but how do you want to handle the accounts receivable if it does go so long? I mean, how long do you want to let go before you do enforcement? I kind of like to get that ironed out and get it bought, and
What's logical?
I don't know.
30 days. You talking about building schedule?
Yeah, for this rural, I mean, if they're turning it into insurance, I don't know if it'll happen in 30 days.
But you should get, so they should notify you back what they're doing, what they're, how to get there.
I'm just asking you, because I just want to get this all lined out so we know, okay, 6 months, we turn it over to who? Are we going to turn it over to Joe? Is that what you guys want to do?
I think 30 days.
What do you want your policy to be on it?
City policy you use on your EMS?
We don't have one.
They won't have one.
That's something
And that's why I'm
So
trying to
that'll
be proactive.
Maybe we should get a policy established.
If we have it 30 days,
Period.
the problem with EMS is you are dealing with, I mean, most people are used to their insurances processing those.
It is a little bit of a different.
And they're asking.
You're gonna have
for
insurance,
almost
you're gonna have insurance with these issues too, so you better be prepared for that. I don't
Right.
think they need to handle it basically the same way, whatever you policy you come up with.
I'll make one up and have it ready.
I think just establish a policy so we'll have something.
And use the standard for both.
Yeah, I think going ahead and have a written policy how that'll work. Because that probably should be
If
included
you're
even
dealing
in the
with
mail.
insurance, is
The mail, when you
at
think.
least 90
Now,
days.
here's how this will
6
process
months.
if unpaid.
I mean, after
For
6
so many
months,
days.
yeah. sometime, but
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
idea,
it's
yeah.
90 days.
Then they know,
They know.
yeah. Yeah, I think that would be good.
We'll have something together, an actual policy for next week's meeting.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I knew you've been calling about that. We just got that today,
Okay,
so I
cool.
wanted to give.
All right, thank you.
So,
All
There,
right, great.
there.
Aaron's got problems.
it does.
He's got problems.
Morning.
Morning. How may we assist you?
Lots of ways, lots of ways. I just want to touch base back with you on this FIT construction. Today, I'm supposed to be getting through FedEx my final draft plan for depth and everything. And hopefully this week I'll get started getting some concrete bids so we can get something locked in. That's
So we're all approved, all ready to go, so just get the bids done.
We still, I called, we're still on the restrictive covenant, getting that in place, which you guys will have to sign once Joe gets it drafted up. I left a message with his Secretary in Ellsworth. And so we'll be waiting on that yet. Surveying's all done. The cleanup week was pretty busy. We had to take in a lot of stuff. Had a few issues. My loader down. It's been down since last Thursday, and we're still working on it. We've had the main pump off of it twice. We've had the main valve body out of it twice. And he's got the valve body with him now. He called me this morning and said he did find a tiny metal burr in there. Not sure where it came from. Before the hydraulic system gets pressure to the valve, it comes to the pump first, which we've had it off twice. So he's not sure where that comes from, but we're still working on the beater and all.
Got a house, probation don't have a loader out there, don't you?
Yeah, I'm getting behind on my bit, but
In the road department, lonely one?
well, not really. I mean, we've had it out there to tires. Since I've got foam-filled tires on that loader. So that would probably
Would take long to have something.
get out in that pit. They'd have 4 flat tires on that pretty quick. Yeah. Tomorrow, I'm having a recycle education program for the kindergarten preschool tomorrow. The morning class will be there around 9:30. Last week I went to Pratt and Roger Metz, and he's head of the RC&D there in Harper. Once our recycles go to Pratt, they get baled there, and then from there they send them to Harper and they get marketed, sold there. But he's ahead. He brought down some stuff for me that I can hand out to kids. It's all made out of material, coloring books, pencils.
Where you gonna have it out there?
In my recycle building.
Down here.
Yeah. Yeah, she brings kids down
Yeah.
on the bus, and I was gonna kind of have a talk with them and
Good.
recycle center cut it. And you guys want to come, you're working on it. And she'll bring her evening class down, so between 1:30 and 2:30 somewhere. And I do have, I talked to George Castning about filling in for me
Okay.
if someone at the road department can do it. I'll know that you guys can.
Is he agreeable? Oh,
Yes.
good, that's good, that solves that problem.
And that's all I have for now.
I thought you said he had troubles.
He does have trouble.
He solved every
He
problem.
can't run his loader.
Yeah. Well, and I've got my 1-ton pickup that I used to recycle. I take it in sometimes so we can get a couple estimates on it. We had an issue with it. North wing caught the door when the guy went to get out of it. So I wrinkled the fenders.
Where's the wind out?
2 of them.
Did the wind blow here?
A little on
Where's
the
it at when he went around here?
According to the windmill people, it doesn't blow enough here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to ride one.
Well, just so you feel better, last time or a couple times ago, you were in here and backed your pickup into something. I did the same thing this morning on the trailer that I parked myself, so.
You know what happens to the best of us.
Again?
What do you mean again?
It happens.
And I didn't even know what I hit. That's what made, what was that?
Is that why some people run around with pickups with no tailgate?
Hey, you got a lot of room to talk. I remember yours folded in.
I just said, I wonder, that's why.
I think it's a sign of this job is what it is.
All right.
Okay, Darren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Distracted is what my excuse.
We'll recess.
Just between you and me. Decide myself.
I have a right of way request from HME Communications out of Hollywood. There's a half a mile of cable over.
You want to get back in session?
We are.
We are?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're good. I didn't
Thank
know
you,
you
sir.
did.
Up here on Stafford Elm Road, they're right there by Virgil Salem.
Half a mile.
Just half a mile.
What are they wanting to do?
Put a half a mile of fiber optic. couple of phone calls.
He hasn't got to it yet.
You think this is okay?
Is it
They got a
right?
map and everything.
It's deep enough to bother you.
No, I won't bother, yeah, they said it was 42 inches. That's the map.
42
order,
inches, so
yeah.
that's a little ditch.
Down county roads, township road, what?
No, it's on our, we don't approve these for township
I
roads.
wondered, I didn't think so. I didn't think that was necessary.
No, that's on the township road.
Really?
That's why I was telling them out there, you know, you probably ought to have something of your own here. So, first of all, so you have a record of it. And second of all, to cover you know what.
What?
You're right away.
That's one way to do it.
Sounds good to me.
Ready for a motion? I'll make a
Yes,
motion to approve this utility permit for H&B Communications.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Lay down their table. Then probably have to make a trip down South Stafford Road.
Yes, I just got to talk to this individual down there. I'm sure it is after that window day.
It's bad on sale day. Wasn't it?
Well, I says, do you have a place for this dirt or this product that's out in the ditch?
That's good stuff in pivot ruts.
And sugar sand?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Old
There you
topsoil
go,
walls.
there's your outlet.
We can market it.
The trouble of it is, it's not close.
Hauling dirt's expensive.
Yeah. After $40,000.
Oh,
We did save a little money on the fuel last week, so.
Ah,
Ended up being about
I didn't.
$1,500.
I gave you advice and then
You didn't wait long enough?
I still haven't bought any yet.
Oh.
Putting it off.
It's
We-
I
ETT.
still got a quarter tank in my tractor, so
We finally bought some.
This one's right.
We finally got a load Wednesday. And
that was the day.
that was the day.
It's so frustrating right now. Diesel fuel on the futures is lower than unleaded by 7 or 8 cents. What is there, 5 cent difference in tax, road tax, something like that?
2 cents on the state side.
I think the total's 5 cents. It's close to that. And then look at the price of diesel fuel compared to on the road fuel. Well, diesel, non-taxed diesel is as high as taxed unleaded.
Just a point of clarification. ETT. One's right, the other's wrong.
Is that the one you want? You need the VCI ones too?
No. So no, I still have hopes of it going down another penny or two, so I have.
I know the E and the I, that's close.
Ah.
It's okay, I'm not offended. No.
Well, I think somewhere on my computer, so I have
Got it.
that. Taken care of.
So,
It's better than crossed out and typed in like
Yeah.
Rogers.
What did I do? I did not.
No.
You're so paranoid.
Why do we pay the coroner?
Because they have to go out and say, yeah, that guy's dead.
But
yeah, you did.
we pay for it?
Oh, yes.
Well, who do you
Gotta
think's
do
going
one
to?
better.
Dead person, I guess.
Can't collect money off of what I told Kansas Cellular one time. They wouldn't let me make any changes on my dad's account after dad passed away. And the gal says, no, can't do this. And I said, you'll have to do this. And I said,
Still have.
well, good, he can just start paying this bill. Well, he has been. I said, no, he hasn't. I said, if you think you can get any more money out of him, you let me know, or if you can talk to him, I wanna talk to him too.
Well, that's good cell phone service there.
We'll recess.
Just wanted to give you the update, and then since last week we didn't talk, generally, other than, from this is from last week too. There was one thing that I thought maybe should be part of, I don't know, public record or whatever from actually our economic development meeting on the 7th, which is that the board voted to fund both the rodeo and the state fair at their requests. They, I think the sentiment was very much that they didn't want to pull the rug out from under anyone if that's kind of how they've been operating and planning to do so this year, but the message was also conveyed that as the economic development and it gets more, a developed initiative, that the priorities will change, and wanted to convey that they wanted them to work towards self-sufficiency, and we've talked through that with all of the parties, and I think everybody's understanding and very, yeah, so I think everybody's happy.
Temporarily, huh?
Well, so, and then, I'm just,
No, wait a minute. You said rodeo and the county or state?
County.
The county
For
fair.
right.
Remember Glenn was in.
Right.
So it's
The rodeo.
Stafford County Rodeo for
And the Stafford
$3,000,
County.
and then the Stafford County Fair for
Okay.
$1,800.
Okay.
And what we've also talked through with them is that we're interested in doing some activities at the fair, one of them being well, I shouldn't say activities, there really is just one, an entrepreneurship contest, and we would like to, and I think it's almost semantics whether you all money to the fair board one way or the other, but they do have a booster ad program, so we're going to put an ad in the fair book that both promotes economic development and specifically this entrepreneurship contest that we want to have in conjunction with the fair. So, in a way, we bought an ad.
Well, you got something for your money, which we haven't been in the past, right?
And I think it'll be also, I think the fair will benefit from having a different kind of activity to generate active, people, traffic at the fair.
Okay.
Since when I give you a written report, you don't get the hyperlink to the online things. I printed off a couple of the examples of the AP article that we got. It ran, I don't know, I think it ran pretty much throughout the state and a handful of other places outside of Kansas. I found places in Indiana, Illinois, Stamford, Connecticut. I think we're getting bites from there. The Christian Science Monitor. I heard that USA Today picked it up, but I didn't ever find it on their website, so I don't know if they did. But anyway, Victoria, Texas picked up on it. We got a handful. Pat says there hasn't been a lot of impact on the web traffic, but she expects that it'll be something that may trickle over time if they're online. People, it's not necessarily that they read it the day that it was first posted. So anyway, if you're interested.
And I did, I got an email or something from the internal marketing people is seen it my way and wanted to know if St. John, Stafford, Hudson, had websites, and I suggested that they put them on the county website. So I don't know if anyone's been in contact.
Well, what is it that we need to put on there?
I don't know. It's already there.
It's just a matter of linking on our website to their place? Okay.
So I told them to go out to our new website, staffordcounty.org, and they could use that. Is that from Judy Walren?
From Judy, yeah, they just wanted to have contact points and stuff like that, so.
Barb Alpers talked to me about something. They were wanting to be able to have a person to contact if they want specific, if a person coming to the county wants specific, they basically just want to contact. And Barb, Alpers and I talked about it, and I provided like the economic development phone number, and I don't know if we put my email on it for now as a permanent thing or not, but they've got the economic development phone number, which won't change, so.
What is that phone number?
549-3527.
Was it, Will at the elevator was pointing out, he likes to use the Stafford County website now, but he loves it. But he said, I get on there and I want to find out events for like what's going on at school, and I can't get from there to there. And apparently the school's website is not too whoopee. I don't know anyhow.
It works real well.
He's not able to get on the Stafford County website and get
And then link to it, so
to
it's not linked through the county
And
website.
that's would only make sense that you could do that. So we could maybe work on that a little bit. All we need to do is connect, and we don't need to, you know.
It's
And I don't know anything about
you
that.
about, she's been interested in buying some software that would allow us as an interim step to have, like it would allow me to make adjustments, you know, updates and so forth without going through her.
She may have, but I mean, I'm not the one to talk to about it.
Okay,
Doesn't mean a lot to me. I think she has, and yeah, so I was telling these guys, she's working towards getting it so you guys can do these without having to go through her. I assume the software is part of that, what needs to happen to do that, right?
right, well, a couple things. I don't know what your arrangement is with her. I mean, I kind of got the impression that she signed on for tweaking and updating the website a little bit, and this is developing into a much bigger project than what she initially signed on for. Have you guys talked about formalizing whatever?
We just discussed that a little bit, yes.
Okay,
And, yeah, I told them that there has to be an end to her free services and beginning to normal services.
okay,
And of course, Pat is working towards most of the stuff being able to be done here locally without having to go through her and incur an expense. But eventually, yeah, there has to be more of a formal arrangement. She's trying to make a living too.
Well, absolutely.
So is that the software that she's talking about to enable?
that puts us into a mode of having, I think, kind of 3 steps, or 2 steps, however you want to look at it. That, what she's talking about buying would be kind of an interim before we got into like the WordPress, which is what we talked about the day that you came over.
I don't think this is expensive. You're only
So-
talking a couple $100, is that right?
I don't get the idea that it's terribly expensive, right?
I know there's stuff out there that's very expensive, but I don't think she's
Right.
incurred getting over it, but anyhow, wants that.
Right.
She's proposing that, so.
And I don't know the trade-off between doing that in the interim versus going full way from the get-go. But
I don't either. We have discussed that we feel like it would be the economic development director's job to kind of oversee this. What do you think of that idea?
certainly the economic development portion of it. I don't know if you think that it's the economic development director's position to like oversee whether the treasurer's office puts online tax payment, you know. I mean, there's a lot of county business that occurs outside of economic development. It's logical, I think, to be a part of the website. You know, or anything. I mean, it could be.
Well,
it's
somebody
just
needs to
an
be
easy one
kind of
to
in
pick
charge
out,
or
but-
oversee it, not necessarily be responsible for it. But, you know, I'm just thinking out loud here about something I don't fully understand.
Well, we would need
It could be
to,
a very consuming, very consuming.
It could be a full-time job, and that's not what I'm talking about, yeah.
but if we had an administrator for Stafford, St. John, Maxville, you know, where they would be on the administrative ability to go in and update their particular section,
Uh-huh.
and it would be their responsibility, you know, a community responsibility. Would you make the schools an administrator to where they could go in.
On our website?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
they'd be responsible for their own website, but like what we're talking about, where we see where we need to have a link, I could see whoever's in charge here being responsible for creating that link. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That kind of makes sense. That's something I don't understand, but.
I don't think the link is hard at all.
But no, that doesn't mean that it's, let's say the economic development director is in charge of the website, doesn't mean they're responsible for going into USD 350's website and making sure it's correct and updated. No, that's not what I'm talking, yeah.
No, that's simply a link. That's all that is, and that takes about 30 seconds to embed a link into a website.
But somebody here needs to have the ability and the responsibility
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, when you're building the website, you can have multiple accounts coming into, or multiple authorities coming into the website, and whoever's the webmaster can assign that authority, and so you give people access to their individual pages and not the overall site. And so you give each individual a specific access to a specific section of the website, and that's what they take care of. And that's what your webmaster is, the person that does all of the overarching and the
Supervising him.
well, and building the framework of the entire thing, because your pages have to all be linked together and they all have to manage and communicate. So, but that's.
So if you're a webmaster, do you get like a robe and a lightsaber and
And a crown.
in a crown.
a crown?
Well, I've always wanted a crown.
And you get a crown of thorns?
Give it a bring Wichita, you know.
All I got was
Well, that's different thing.
all I got was a little hammer and a glass belly button, so I could see
A
where I was
glass
going.
belly button?
Yeah,
Now, this is a
sometimes
little
you
more
need that
information
to
than I want right now. And did you wear it? No, I don't want it. I don't want it.
But that's how it works, is you do have one person that is the webmaster, and that's what
Webmaster, yeah.
That's what you really need, is somebody that.
So you think that economic developer, that makes sense to me. It's either that or Nita, and I know.
Nita's not gonna do it.
See, that was easy.
Nobody in Nita's office is gonna do it either.
But, well, no, but don't you think that falls under that parameter?
Well, I don't know.
I don't think it does.
You don't either, huh?
It's gonna take a lot of time.
It's,
To be the webmaster? I
You're
guess.
gonna have to constantly stay on top of that stuff, and
Well, then what do we do?
I don't know.
I guess we'll
You hire a webmaster.
visit that issue later.
And you don't want to know
I
how
mean,
much
I've
that costs.
talked to some comparable offices that 20% of their time is just economic development website maintenance.
Oh, I can see that. Because that's a critical part of the department, really is.
Right.
Way more
Right.
so than the treasurer or the clerk, you know, I mean, that's what we're doing this for. That's why I think it makes sense that they're, you know, overseeing it, but, you know, we'll talk about it later. It's not a decision we make now.
Okay. Anything else?
But you understand what Pat's saying too, then?
I do,
Okay.
yeah. Am I supposed to play a part in gathering that kind of, I don't know, whatever it is, document, contract, whatever, agreement for the more expanded scope of project? Or is that something that you intend to directly work with Pat on?
Good question.
And I don't know an answer. I guess what we should do is talk to her or have her send us an email outlining what needs to be done and what she's willing to do
And make some
and
type
if
of
software is
rate
available to help
You know,
make
she
it.
did all this for free, and
Yeah.
I'm sure put a lot of work into it, so I wouldn't be opposed to.
And she's
going
willing to
ahead and
continue.
Continue it, but I mean, work out some type of deal with her, which good, and keep it up. There's no sense having the website, it'll keep it up and keep it.
Well, I think
Phrase
too,
phrase
you
information.
communicate it. I have trouble relaying the information
And
properly.
she's got the
sometimes.
proficiency to do this, and, you know, very
Well,
well.
that's what she's
If
trying
she
to
would
do.
do
for
it, just
us.
give us an outline of,
So in other words, I should
yeah, just.
gather
Feel-
that.
feel
Is that-
free.
Well, contact her and have her make up a to-do,
Okay.
a to-do list and what is needed. I mean, kind of in the dark as far as building a web and.
Have not get some type of, or say some idea from her what it takes for her to keep this place safe.
She has something in mind, so it's not gonna be hard. She's,
Yeah, and if she'd be willing to do it.
yeah, I think so.
Okay, I don't know, this is, should she, if we're doing that process, should I be working exclusively with her, or should I also be considering other opinions on that, or?
Well, I think we need something that she's willing to do this.
You know, I kinda need to stay out of that. Well, it's,
Well, I
you know.
don't mean to.
Well, I think our responsibility would be to the Stafford County website itself. Now, we can link to the rest of the world, and it's their
What you're saying, should
responsibility
you
to
look
keep
for
their
another
stuff up.
tech person?
Well, I mean, there's probably a lot of different ways to approach this, and that one way approach, it's kind of like going to a doctor. You know, what may be really good, would you benefit from a couple different perspectives as you decide what you want to do? I don't know.
How much work do you wanna put into this? girl?
Well, I know, it's just right, that's what I'm saying, it can be a big job, but I don't know. Or do you want me to focus just on that kind of economic development part, and you guys do other, I don't know. We could also look at that as kind of break off essentially the economic development portion of it, and the county does what, I know.
They're so integrated that
You
how
can't
can you
it
break
off.
them
It's
up?
county. We're all a county.
Right,
But
right,
it's-
yeah,
That's-
can't
how can you break
segregate
it?
one.
I don't see the need for that, and I don't like that idea. But, in fact, I'm not even sure what you're asking us at this point.
Well,
I mean,
you
we
can
were-
have
we
like,
were-
if
we-
you think about the county, that tree, and here's like treasurer, and, whatever, clerk, you can have economic development, and we've talked about this before, making it, she calls it a landing page. And you could, it would, in that tree, be under the county website, but you could make it look as if this is its standalone website with all of its, stuff underneath. As far as like web search engine optimization, my understanding is we all benefit from being under that same umbrella, but you can kind of manage this as its own website. You could direct people, you could have business cards that had the website addressed to this, so they weren't navigating through like the county business if they're only interested in relocation information or whatever. You can make it look as if it's its standalone website, even if it's kind of got the same template look and feel as the rest of the website. That's what I'm talking about.
So you're talking about in the future developing your own website? Yeah, I think those are
Well-
issues we can deal with when the time comes, sure. But what we're trying to talk about now is what, our relationship with Pat. And I thought you were asking, should we go out and look for another person like Pat and find
I'm
prices before we, or not? And I'm not opposed to that, that's why I said I shouldn't get. But when you're talking about specific details on a specific part of the website, that's an issue. That's not what we're talking about here, I don't think, is it? I know you want to move forward on this, and there's a lot to that, and that's where Pat is like, hey, I can't do this for free forever, especially when we're getting this much and this detailed and this, and then because the difficulty level increases. I'm assuming.
Agree.
So,
And I guess
and that-
maybe this is what I'm kind of saying is, I don't know how much the other parts of the county are really even interested in doing a whole lot different than what they've been doing. So the big part of the project probably isn't this. So
Yes,
if we are talking about asking what that scope of project, I guess that's maybe where I stay.
Well, and I would guess, and I'm trying to think out loud here again, that if, once you get to that point, and it's gonna be out of your budget at that point, and you want to price around to see what somebody would do this work for, I wouldn't have any opposition to that at all. I think that's only prudent.
Okay. So as far as the next step goes, You
Well,
want
the
me to
next-
get something from
The next
Pat
step,
that
the
kind
next
of
step is for us to
describes
get an
the scope of
economic
work?
development director hired, and then we worry about that,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
I think that that's just the way we gotta do it. Before you get to developing a real intricate website, I think that's what we gotta do.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hard to wait, but
No, that's pretty good too. Okay. I don't have anything else there, you know.
what'd you think of the wind farm, guys? You're gonna follow up?
Oh, yeah, in fact, I have an appointment this afternoon with Bob Muirhead. And we're gonna talk about follow-up from that.
Okay.
And kind of generally also what, I mean, his title is Director of Economic and Community Development or something to that effect. So I'm just kind of interested in generally speaking what they've got going on in that area. But also as a follow-up to last week's meeting and seeing if we could figure out, I don't know, some development that could logically occur.
When I was a little frustrated, when I spoke to him on the phone, he was a lot more positive about not big commercial wind farms, but the smaller things. And he kind of was backpedaling on that the other day, like. But he specifically told me, he said, I'm sure there's some room in Stafford County for some wind. And boy, he certainly didn't indicate that the other day, so.
And I still, you know, if that threshold is at 2 megawatts, a lot of those big turbines are less than 2 megawatts.
Right,
or
and
like
it's,
that.
and it's
The
something.
threshold for the big study through Southwest Power Pool and all that kind of stuff, where you get into, I mean, it seems to me you might be able to fit in a few of them under that threshold, but I don't know, let's see.
Did I understand what they were saying right? Well, I mean, when they talked about, we're always concerned about the lines being full, right? That's their excuse. What he was saying was the lines are not full 90+% of the time.
99% of the time, but the 1% they've got to make sure they've got room for it. So, yeah, there's room out in the lines, but that's why the people said they can't. They tell us full, and they can tell us full because at the peak period, they might be full.
They might need that,
Right,
right?
right, you don't want it
Well,
to
it's-
crash at just the very moment when you need the most
So
electricity, I
that's
mean.
why they're supposed to, I read a third.
But what I don't understand about that is that Mulligan, which is a big plant up there by Great Bend. It's not like the little ones we got around here, and I don't have, I mean, but it sits there idle until they hit this peak, right? And everything's tied to Mulligan. I mean, all these lines come in and out of there, probably from all over. Anyhow, these lines are sitting there being underutilized for 90% of the time. Okay, we have this peak for 2 days in the summer, 2 weeks in the summer, and the electricity has to flow out of this line. But what's the difference if it's coming from a windmill or coming from Mulligan?
I can answer that question.
Oh, please.
With the windmill, with Mulligan's, you can turn a switch on and you've got electricity. With the windmill, it's not a schedulable, calculable, solid, firm
I understand that.
thing. So the wind, when it comes up, it's not anything that you can schedule or you can rely on. And when you need electricity, you don't need it in a day or two when the wind blows.
Do they not have the ability to produce X amount of electricity or Y? It's all or nothing?
Well, they have loads, and you have to have enough to provide electricity for the load that you have.
No, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
generating capacity.
Well, that's what
At the plant, if they need 10 megawatts and 3's coming into the system, can they not generate 7?
they should be able to generate 7, but
Tell
yeah.
me where the problem is.
Well,
Do you know what I'm saying?
first off, with the
I know
wind,
what you're saying.
with the wind, when do you get wind? February and March.
More than they're letting on,
In
that
April,
they've probably
in May.
already got to.
Well,
I realize it's,
but I mean,
I
no,
realize it requires
not
more
the
work.
high winds, but high winds you have to shut down.
but I mean, commercial wind, you're getting into February and March. When do you need the electricity?
And I think they do still.
July and August.
They do have to reserve enough capacity to.
And they have to have the ability to schedule that to be used. You can't just throw it in there because they can't buy it and
I get
just,
but they have to be
not have anywhere to put it.
to provide on those peak periods without
Understand.
crashing the
I
system.
understand. I don't see how we're inhibiting that. In fact, I think we're enhancing it.
Right. If the wind is providing part of that during the peak, then we, right, I see what you're saying.
But during the peak series, that's like you said today, that's the least windiest time. It's really, really hot weather, you don't have any wind.
So they don't have lost, they don't lost anything
Why
by,
can't you not operate these turbines and let them go ahead and use their line for peak and then let them come back on if you know, as soon as their peak period's over with and produce electricity?
Well, the way it sounds to me like they're saying it is, okay, I have to have this generator here that produces 10 megawatts because, and I have this line that carries 10 megawatts because I have this demand, that peak demand 10 megawatts, all right? So I have the generating capacity to make 10 megawatts. Now, the rest of the time, it's only requiring 3 or 4. And if we put 3 or 4 in the system, it would use it up, no big deal. But when I need the 10, I can't have the 3 or 4 coming in because I've got to make 10, and so it makes 13.
no, I think they can adjust it, but I bet I'm guessing
They
part of
don't
the
want
answer
to?
is that they can't adjust it as fast as the wind goes on and off. I mean, they may need like an hour lead time to really gear a generator
So that's what
up.
makes it difficult.
I think that might be part of it. I don't know
Well,
that it's totally unmanageable.
Can
but
you
I think
ask
that's
some of
part
these
it.
questions?
Yeah.
I
think,
mean,
you know,
it's
when
not
you're
like we're
talking
trying to
about
manage
gas,
their business,
those-
but we're trying to
Those are a lot more
understand it.
responsive in terms
Well,
of when they can turn.
I
them.
understand. Some of these
The
are
cold
steam
ones,
boiler.
I think they need like a day in advance to
Absolutely.
get some of those going.
I can see where that's a problem.
But the
But
gas-
like the generators in Great Bend, they're just natural gas. They're not steam. They turn it on. They got 3 or 4 in a series. They can start 1, 2, 3, or 4. And they may be obsolete, but you know, I think they run. And, you know, so I'm still a little frustrated. And then the most frustrating part is sitting there for 2 hours listening to them tell us how bad wind is and how all these problems with it, and turning right around and investing in wind and power lines, transmission lines in other counties that are outside of their service area.
Yeah,
And I think that point needs to really be emphasized.
because they aren't totally there on their 20% yet, that they'll have to get to,
They need more.
they'll need some more.
And what's wrong with being over 20%? That's just the minimum required. And if it's working in this county, my point is that I want you to emphasize, why does it work in Ellsworth County and not in Stafford County? And why are those people getting the benefit when I'm the one writing the check to pay their wages? That's my point to them. So if you bring that up, I'd like to hear the response. Even though he said the message, what did he tell me? I got the message.
And it's also called tax credits.
And then the tax credit thing, I don't understand it all.
What?
How much money are they talking about there? It seems to be what they're all working towards. Is this like 2 or 3 cents a kilowatt? And that means that the company that receives that can take that money off of their income tax due?
Right. That's,
So it's
I
not a
mean, these
deduction, it
Things
is
don't
a
work without the
write-off.
tax incentives,
No.
and so,
They
yes.
extended it for another period again, the tax incentive for the wind power, right, from when till when?
So have you said,
I think it's in effect through 2012.
that's what they were saying the other day, yeah, it's not very long, yeah. Well, not
Unless
long
they,
enough to
unless they
start
extended
doing
it again, what they'd have with time or so.
But so, say it's 2 cents a kilowatt, have you?
Yeah, you have to have pretty good tax liability in order to make that an incentive that's worth,
If you pencil through it, how many dollars are you talking about there? Because 2 cents a kilowatt, 2 cents out of every kilowatt's going for a tax credit. And by credit, they mean it comes off your amount, your tax owed.
right.
2.3 cents per kilowatt, but you
So-
have to calculate in that it's costing
I
you
don't know.
between $7 and $10 per kilowatt to install that.
Kilowatts a year.
So it's gonna take you forever to get your
Well,
money back.
they're 2 megawatt
Well,
towers, but they don't produce every day.
right, so that's what I'm saying. I don't know
What
how-
efficiency they run, I don't know.
I'm sure different models have different projected output, so forth.
If they were in Stafford County, they'd be pretty dang efficient. I'm sure it is. You'd be on top of an elevator, tell me the wind doesn't blow in Stafford County. Calmest days. Okay, thank you.
All right. we done? Got all your paperwork done?
No. But I can do that after you adjourn.
Anything else needed? Yeah, we're adjourned.